Breaking news, people panic buying toilet paper. Me at home, ha ha ha. Me at grocery store, oh wait you're serious. What is your ha ha ha? Oh wait you're serious moment? My dad told me about one time when he was in high school gym class, this would have been in the late 70s, he overheard a couple of guys whispering to each other about someone having been raped. My dad starts getting all pissed off and tries to eavesdrop to figure out what happened. These guys are talking very quietly, sort of looking around to make sure no one could hear them. My dad catches little pieces like, I don't know if he really did it. Doesn't seem like something he would do. She's lied about that kind of thing before. And so on. Finally, my dad can't take it anymore, gets himself all worked up, and pushes one of the kids against a locker and asks him what happened, who was involved, etc. Turns out these kids were talking about some soap opera and they were just too embarrassed that they watched it that they didn't want anyone to hear them talking about it. Started a new job in a company where my boss worked in 2 different offices. He wrote himself a note on legal paper. He handed it to me and told me to fax it to the other office. Then he told me to call them and tell them to put it on his desk there so he could have it tomorrow when he arrived. I smiled because I thought he was playing a joke on the new guy. He was not. He loves faxing. When I was in high school I received a message over MSN from a buddy saying, Mitch is dead. Thinking he got into trouble, I responded with, ahaha what did he do? It turns out, he had a brain aneurysm while driving home from school. I asked a coworker with what his son's name was, and he answered Legolas. After 2 seconds of laughing, I realized he wasn't laughing. His son is actually named Legolas. I was walking my dog a few weeks ago and came face to face with a guy with a small toddler and an Afghan hound. My dog can be funny with dogs he doesn't know, so I grabbed his collar as we approached. The guy saw what I'd done and so said loudly Merlin. Stop, and grabbed his dog and picked up the toddler. As we passed I said that's a great name for a dog. He looked insulted and said Merlin is my son's name. My principal's last name is Knight, and after I wore a Star Wars t-shirt to work one day, I'm a teacher, she came up to me and told me her son's name is Jedi. Jedi Knight. Others confirmed she was serious. As a giant nerd, I think it's actually kind of awesome though lol. I worked with a Greek guy named Aristotle. He was kind of a moron ironically, so I didn't believe him when he told me his brothers' names were Alexander and Achilles until I met them and made them show ID cause I thought they were pulling a fast one on me. I've been that idiot. I'm British and always sucked at geography, and I had this with the US. I thought that Canada was where California is on the map, and where Canada is was North America. No idea WTF I thought the rest of the US was? Mexico or something maybe? In hindsight, I have no idea how any of that made sense, but one day when I was about 16, I was playing one of those geopolitical browser games and I was looking at the map and was like, wait, hold up. This was a few years ago. I forgot how the topic was brought up, but I clearly remember my older sister saying, there aren't any modern buildings in Egypt, just pyramids. I came into my job and my boss was running a bit late for an unknown reason. Now, my boss is the type of person to joke about anything, no matter how serious it is, and will pull it off with a straight face. We never really take him seriously unless it is directly related to work. He comes in after being late and after a bit, just casually says our close coworker had passed the previous night. I literally chuckled and said yeah, sure, and blew it off. He then said that he died from a heart attack before he was set to go out with his buddies during the evening. I then said, oh wait, are you actually serious? And he almost started crying right there and said yes. I miss that man to this day, really chill guy with some cool hobbies and volunteer work. I also feel so bad for my boss because they had known each other for years. I had a friend whose brother was kidnapped. He was with me at my school and he didn't know of it. In fact, his parents didn't tell him about it because they thought it would be really inappropriate time to do so. We were in a boarding school and both far from home. We weren't allowed cell phones on the campus either. Our finals were going on. It was a really crucial exam. His parents had informed the school principal and the principal had a talk with the teachers. Somehow a math teacher accidentally told him that his brother was kidnapped. My friend was like, nice joke bud. The teacher laughed it off and hid his mistake. Finally, he got the news, by his parents himself. His family was threatened to give money or else they would kill his brother. They didn't have that much to give. My friend failed in his exams. He changed his career and began preparation to join the police department. I understand his frustration. The police also could not help him with his case back then. He is going to graduate this year. I am really going to cry when I see him in the police uniform. It's really insane how all things change in the fraction of seconds. Friend 1, hey man, how come you decided to shave all your hair off? Friend 2, the chemo kind of decided for him. Friend 1, oh fuck off Joe, no seriously though, how come? Me, he's actually not joking. Funniest shit that ever happened to me. I once worked with a 50-some-year-old guy at my first job, who also happened to be a former crackhead. I added that detail because his mannerisms and communication were clearly affected by his prior drug use, and he would sometimes laugh when he was telling serious stories. One day he was telling me a story about him accidentally setting fire to the woods when he was trying to cremate his dead pet frog when he was a little boy. I was laughing my ass off, strangely so was he, until he looked me dead in the eye, with a face that's as serious as they get, and says I'm still not over it. I knew that look and knew he was actually being serious despite being in absolute hysterics with me while telling his story. I immediately felt like an asshole. He was cool about it though, thankfully, lol. An intern at the vet I work at was a very sheltered Mormon. He came to work one day panicked. He had his first kiss the night before, asked the girl to marry him, and was concerned about his wedding date. He was absolutely convinced that he got her pregnant by kissing her. Absolutely convinced. It took me a long time to register what he was panicked about because it sounded so absurd. He'd delivered hundreds of kittens and puppies by then. I just thought he had also learned about human reproductive anatomy as well as animals by then. Someone wanted to euthanize their dog because when she was put outside alone in heat, she found a chihuahua and had ugly puppies that cost a breeding session. When we asked what that had to do with anything, he said the chihuahua's sperm is forever inside of her and can make those ugly puppies instead of the purebred. This dog was definitely not a purebred. When we said that things don't work that way, he said, I know for a fact they do. That's why my daughter is half N-word. An N-word raped my wife back when she was in her 20s and his sperm stayed inside her until mine activated it. And we all know, sperm is more violent, so it won. He was serious. Waking up from general anesthesia. One of the nurses by my hospital bed gently informs me that my heart had stopped while I was under. I thought I was dreaming for a while and didn't take it seriously. Then my dad showed up, and I saw the panic on his face. Then I phoned my mom, and she had obviously been crying her eyes out. Then I took it seriously. When I learned I had totally forgotten to attend almost every single class in one of my college courses. I forgot I had enrolled in it. A classmate asked me, haha, where have you been? You're never there when the teacher's taking attendance. And I was like, haha, funny. So anyway, wait for fuck. Luckily it was only about a month into the semester and I managed to bring it back up to a low B. I was on a Christian camping week here in the UK. There were some Americans with us. I found a stone on the beach with some great fossils in it and was showing it to some kids. One of the Americans started talking about how God had put fossils in the earth to mislead the vain who trusted their own observations rather than the Bible. I, naturally, thought he was joking and burst out laughing, and he was just so offended. He complained about me to the people running the camp, and they thought he was joking at first and laughed too. My estranged auntie sending me a message to disinvite me to my sick but alive father's funeral because, wait for it, I had lunch with my little half-brother and sister, and that is disrespectful to my father. My father never let me and half-siblings meet before this lunch had occurred, and by meeting them, he disowned me. Literally, that's it. Just my fucked up family. When I came back from lunch at work to find that one of the soft drink vendors, because at grocery stores they stock their own product, our stockers don't, loaded the pallets wrong and a tower of pallets fell, spilling soda/tea/glass everywhere. The boss, store manager, just so happened to walk into the back room at the same time, looked at me, and was like, you saw it, you're cleaning it up. Thinking he was joking as he liked to do, I laughed it off. That's when he looked me dead in the eye and said, no, I mean you're really cleaning it up because that's your job. Insert me spending the rest of my shift cleaning it up and my department head constantly calling me over the intercom and getting yelled at and then written up the very next day because I didn't do my duties in addition to cleaning up that epic mess. Getting fired later that year was one of the best things to happen to me. Years back I dated a girl who would lie compulsively about random things. The first big example, I went to her place, she'd just got Assassin's Creed for the first time and was really getting into the story. Like a week later she was telling me how she'd just discovered her family was related to assassins from Florence. I thought it was a joke, but it turns out she was serious, had changed her surname to something Italian on Facebook and had already spread the lie about on social media. In my head I was like, I literally watched you play Assassin's Creed last week, but she was gorgeous. Way out of my league. So I put up with this and other crazy shit for another 6 months before I gave up. New friend, I really shouldn't be doing so many extreme sports, but you gotta live your life, right? I'm gonna end up in a wheelchair by the time I'm 30. Me, ha. I know, right? New friend, no, I mean really, I have a degenerative disease that's going to ruin my body by my 30s, so I'm trying to live my life now. It's ridiculous that tampon ads aren't banned. The fact they're allowed in public just goes to show that women have too much power. This wasn't in response to a particularly graphic ad that pushed any boundaries. Just a generic type about comfort and reliability. It took me a while to realize that he wasn't joking. I was working at an Italian restaurant, and the owner was an uneducated but business-savvy old Italian guy who had a quite good-looking wife. Once after he noticed my GF picking me up, he said to me, "You know what the secret of a good marriage is? You have to keep them stupid." I laughed thinking he was just joking, but he had a dead serious look on his face. Later I learned he had stopped his wife. They knew each other since childhood, from finishing school, and had forbidden her doing anything other than taking care of the 4 children they had together. I'm in Australia, and I first heard the news of 9/11 on my morning radio, USA Evening. I was stuck in traffic near the army base, and they announced it with sirens. To start off with, I thought it was a comedy sketch that I didn't think was particularly funny. I had a pretty dark sense of humor, too. Then I realized it was news. Holy shit. Back in college, me and a few of my guys would get lunch every Tuesday. I and 2 of the guys are there as normal and are waiting for our last guy, Todd. I start texting Todd and asking him about not being at lunch yet. The other guys start narrating what I should text. So I end up saying, "Matt says get your roly-poly looking ass over here. Steve says that you're the personification of washing your hands and getting your sweater sleeves wet." It goes on like that for a bit, then Todd calls me directly. He says he can't make it because his grandma died that morning and was headed home to see his family. The look on the other 2 guys' faces when I told them was priceless. When I was in college, I and 2 friends went out to a cheap Chinese buffet for a weekday lunch. We were probably not particularly well groomed or dressed at the time. So at a nearby table were a woman and a man having lunch, both dressed in business attire. After they finish, the woman, probably in her 20s, comes over to our table out of nowhere and starts chatting with us, making normal chit-chat. Kind of odd, but maybe she's just friendly. All of a sudden she asks, "Do you guys like to fuck?" We just looked at each other and laughed nervously because how do you respond to that in this situation? She just stood there, completely serious. I don't even remember what we said to her after that. This was 20+ years ago, but despite sounding like the beginning of a porno, it was only followed by another round at the buffet, not a gangbang. Breaking news, people panic buying toilet paper. Me at home, ha ha ha. Me at the grocery store, oh wait, you're serious. Was working a job while in the early days of college. It was in a popular American restaurant chain where I had been successful as a host, cashier, waiter, and member of their retail store for just about a year. I accidentally forgot that I had swapped shifts with someone and missed the shift entirely. But I came in a few hours after it had started to sincerely apologize and let them know I was going home to change and I'd be right back. They brought me to the back and told me I was fired. I laughed at first because the boss was occasionally a bit of a jokester. Then I realized he was serious. To this day it gives me massive anxiety about underperforming in any job I have because I believe I will just be fired for it and they'll move on regardless of my tenure or knowledge. One time I worked at a shitty restaurant and after about a year of being a pretty stellar employee, I needed to take a shift off. I told my manager a month in advance that it was my dad's 50th birthday and I bought our tickets to see Tom Petty at the Hollywood Bowl. A week goes by and I told my boss that no one would cover my shift. Then a week after that I remind him again. And then I reminded him twice the week of my scheduled shift that I wouldn't be there. When I got back from the show, he called me in the office and told me I was being written up. I laughed at first too. Then I told him no fucking way I was signing that write-up and gave notice. Fuck that place. After a panel discussion, I went to the hotel bar with one of the other panelists to discuss our work. I was 32, she was in her early 60s, I believe. As we drank, she became flirty. I thought it was fun so I went along with it. When she invited me up to her room, I thought she was joking. She wasn't. It was quite awkward when I realized. There's a girl at work who used to call the icing sugar talcum powder. We didn't realize for weeks that she actually thought it was called that. She's actually a pretty switched on girl in general, she just has these weird things. I listed my Ford Explorer for sale. A guy emailed me to trade his 2018 Kia Forte or something. I didn't really need one since my fleet already had a 2013 Kia Forte, but he emailed me a few times saying he wants my Explorer but owes money on his Kia. I said how much? He said it's an 8-year finance deal so we need to pay in total $45,000. And he wanted my car. I could buy that car right now for $25-30K at the dealership brand new. He was dead serious. Many years ago I was having the "what are you into sexually?" conversation with a girlfriend. We were at that point in the relationship. It starts vanilla enough and escalates to fetish and kink talk. At one point the conversation went like this. "Would you let me put spaghetti in your dick hole?" I chuckle, haha what? No. Thinking her next question would be about something else. What if it was cooked? How the hell would that help? What if it breaks? What if it was something more solid? You're not putting anything in my dick hole. She got very upset and went off about how she needs to be with a sexually explorative and open person. She was legit mad at me because I told her I'm not into getting things stuffed into my cock. Some guys where I worked were planning to gang rape a girl in the parking lot when the shift ended. It wasn't a hilarious haha story even at first, but it really seemed like just really horribly inappropriate joking. It was a lunch table I sat down during my break with guys around my age. At first, I was just really uncomfortable and just tried to shut up and tune it out. But then they tried to include me and it escalated to the full-out planning details and I was just about sick at the table. I was absolutely sure they were going to do it. So as soon as they were gone I went and told my dad, who was the safety guy at the plant, and he made sure cops were waiting for them in the parking lot and that girl had someone walking her to her car from then on. The whole thing was so fucked. Thank you for watching Reddit Space. Please subscribe if you love these Reddit stories.